Let me tell you about one of the most common surprises people get when they're staying in a Maldives resort. You sit down for a lovely dinner, you have a couple of cocktails, the bill arrives, and it is significantly more than you expected. Or you're browsing excursions and you see a sunset cruise listed at $80 per person, you book it, and then at checkout, somehow it's not $80. This happens to a huge number of first-time visitors in the Maldives. And it doesn't happen because resorts are being sneaky. It happens because the Maldives has a tax system that many people simply haven't encountered before. And then on top of that, there's the whole tipping question. Do you tip? How much? When? And does it matter if you're already paying service charge? I'm Becky Lydia, and this is Maldives Guide. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how taxes, service charges, green tax and tipping work in the Maldives, so you know what to expect before you pay. The plus system. Let's start right at the beginning with something that confuses almost everyone the first time they see it. If you've been browsing Maldives resorts prices, you may have noticed that some prices are listed like this. $100 plus. And if you've never seen that before, it can be completely baffling. Here's what it means. As you probably guessed, this is not the final price. The two plus signs mean add service charge and add tax. So at current rates, that $100 becomes this. You have the $100 base price, you have 10% service charge, so that's $10, plus the 17% GST, which is the goods and services tax, and that is calculated on the $110, so that's $18.70. So your total is $128.70. That's 28.7% more than the original base price. That is a significant difference, and it's why you should always check whether a price is shown inclusive or exclusive of charges before you compare options or assume you know what something costs. I do have a full guide to the costs of a Maldives holiday, including transfers, all-inclusive versus paying as you go, and everything you need to know to budget, and it will be linked below. So let's talk about that 17% first. What actually is it? So it's GST, as I said before, it stands for Goods and Services Tax. It's the Maldivian equivalent to VAT in the UK or sales tax in the USA. So it's just a government tax on goods and services. So for tourists, this is specifically called the TGST, which is the Tourism Goods and Services Tax, and the current rate is 17%, which came into effect on the 1st of July 2025, when it was increased from 16%. It applies to pretty much everything you do as a tourist in the Maldives. Your accommodation, food and drinks, spa treatments, excursions and water sports, dive centre charges, transfers. Essentially, if you're paying for something as a tourist, GST applies. And because it's percentage-based, the more expensive the service, the more tax you pay, which is why it's especially important for luxury travellers to factor this in. When you're spending large amounts, 17% adds up rather quickly. So say you're in a spa and you see a lovely treatment for $200, just remember it's going to be $200 plus $54 in taxes, which includes the service charge, which we'll now get onto. So the service charge is genuinely confusing, particularly when it comes to tipping. The service charge at Maldives resorts is 10%. And unlike a lot of countries where the service charge is suggested or optional, in the Maldives it is mandatory, which means it is required by law in all resorts. So you can't ask for them to remove it, you can't opt out. It's part of the bill. What's important to understand is what this service charge is actually for. It's designed to support resort staff. It's distributed among the employees who are working to make your stay exceptional. Housekeeping, waiters, butlers, kitchen staff, boat crew, all the way up to the general manager. They all get an equal cut. Which, if you think about it, is amazing for those staff making their way up the ladder. It can give them an extra $1,000 or more each month in their wages. And that might not be very much to a manager, but think the difference it makes to a gardener or a member of housekeeping. So every time you order food, book a treatment or pay for anything at the resort, you're already contributing directly towards the people who are serving you. Which naturally raises the question, if I'm already paying the service charge on everything, do I still need to tip? We will get to that in a moment, I promise. But first, the third charge, the one most people haven't heard of at all, actually. And that is the green tax. This is a government environmental levy, and unlike GST and service charge, which apply to every individual purchase, green tax is charged per person per night of accommodation. So at resorts, the current rate is $12 per person per night. This rate came into effect on the 1st of January 2025, when it was doubled from the previous $6. So for 2 people staying for 7 nights, that is an additional $168 on your bill before you've even bought a single cocktail. Children under 2 are exempt from the green tax, which is worth knowing if you're traveling with very young children. And if you're staying at a smaller guest house on a local island rather than a resort, then the rate is lower at $6 per person per night, but that is only for properties with 50 rooms or fewer. Green tax is charged separately on your accommodation bill rather than itemised against each purchase. So it often comes as a lump sum during the checkout process that many people don't account for. As with everything else, always check whether your booking price includes it. Some do, but some don't. So let's put this all together because I want to give you a really clear picture of what the Maldives holiday actually costs versus what it appears to cost. So let's say you're booking a room at $500 a night for 2 people for 7 nights. So that is $3,500 before anything else. So you add the 10% service charge, so that's $350. You add the 17% GST, and then you add the green tax at $12 per person per night, which is $168. So your accommodation alone before a single meal, drink or excursion is now $4,672.50. And then every meal, every cocktail, every package, every spa treatment, every excursion adds its own 28.7% on top of the listed price. So I'm not saying this to put anyone off. The Maldives is worth every penny of it for the right person. But knowing this before you go is the difference between a trip that feels wonderful and one that feels like a nasty financial surprise. I have a video specifically on how to choose the right resort for your budget, including how to work out the true total cost before you book, linked below. Right, the question everybody asks, do you need a tip in the Maldives? The honest answer is no, not technically. Tipping is not expected in the Maldives. There is no tipping culture in the same way as somewhere like the United States, where leaving a tip is practically obligatory. And importantly, you're already paying a mandatory 10% service charge on almost everything. And that money goes to the staff. So in a sense, it's already built into your bill. However, tipping is genuinely appreciated, and for staff who have gone above and beyond, you know, a waiter who's remembered how you like your tea each morning, a butler who's picked up your kids from kids club when you forgot, a boat crew who dropped you off at a seemingly deserted island, then hung around for an extra half hour to make sure that the person collecting you actually turned up. You know, they deserve something, I think, for that. Yeah, those are all real examples. The last one is a really good story if I ever get around to telling it on this channel. Maybe I'll do a disaster stories later on when it's a little bit more established. So, moving on. Workers at Maldives resorts often come from other countries and are working away from their families for extended periods. For many of them, tips are a meaningful additional income on top of their salaries. In terms of amounts, if you do choose to tip, a couple of dollars for one-off services like a boat transfer, a bag being carried, a room service delivery. For ongoing services like housekeeping, waiters who look after you throughout your stay, many guests prefer to give larger tip at the end of the week rather than small amounts daily. Somewhere in the region of $10 to $20 per week for someone who has genuinely looked after you is a reasonable guide. If you have a dedicated butler and the service has been exceptional, you might choose to go higher, but there's absolutely no obligation and no expectation. But on a practical note, bring US dollars in small denominations and also make sure that they are nice and crisp and new. US dollars are the currency of the Maldives tourism sector and are by far the most practical and appreciated currency for tipping. A small envelope of $1, $5 and $10 bills is very useful to have with you if you like to tip. So let me pull all this together in a few practical pieces of advice before you go. Number one, never assume the listed price is the final price. Always check whether a price is shown inclusive or exclusive of GST and service charge. If it says net or inclusive, you're seeing the real number. Number two, factor in the green tax from the start. It's easy to forget because it doesn't appear against individual purchases, but at $12 per person per night, it adds up across a week's stay. So budget for it upfront. Number three, on all-inclusive versus paying as you go. Because the 27% add-on applies to every individual purchase, an all-inclusive package can actually represent very strong value in the Maldives, particularly if you drink alcohol or plan to eat a lot. So run the numbers before you decide. Number four, on tipping, don't feel pressured. You're already contributing to staff through the service charge. So tip if someone has genuinely made a difference to your stay, not because you feel obligated. If you're finding this useful, and I really hope that you are, please do hit subscribe. I cover every practical aspect of planning a Maldives trip on this channel, and there is a lot more to come. The Maldives is one of the most extraordinary destinations in the world, but it's also one of the most expensive. And understanding exactly how the pricing works before you go, what you're paying, why you're paying it, and what to expect genuinely changes the experience. No nasty surprises, no confusion at checkout, just the holiday you planned for. All the links mentioned in this video are in the description below. If this has been helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to Maldives Guide if you haven't already. I'm Becky Lydia, and I will see you in the next one.